Hey guys, this is TJ, and you're listening to the BAMsters podcast. Remember, with great podcasts comes great entertainment. Boom, 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 boom.
And hey everybody, yes, we're back again. It's another episode of the Rated R Show here at BAMsters. It is the week of September, I think, the 11th, more or less. PAX has come and gone, a lot of other things have come and gone, but we're still here. I am, as always, G, and with me from the United States of California, it is the Drac.
What up?
Ceiling, why?
You took the easy joke.
Always. Anyways, there's been a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of news. People who follow us also tend to be a little bit into the EVE and CCP games. We know there's been a big announcement with Pearl Abyss and everything from that side. We're not covering it in this one. That will be handled separately. Bam's brewing on something. Later up, I'm gonna leave, yay, and TJ is coming to replace me and talk about some... I'm gonna guess, I haven't looked at the notes, but I'm fairly sure he's gonna talk Nightwing. Because that's what they talk about every time. But yeah, some comic shop talk.
Yeah, Tej is a big fan of Nightwing. Well, Tej is a big fan of how Nightwing used to be. But I'll leave it at that. You guys can come back after the break, or stick with us through here and listen, and see what it's all about.
Anyways, there's just been a PAX West. It's a weird name, because doesn't PAX means peace? Again, PAX Vobiscum. Go with peace.
Well, it's the Penny Arcade Expo.
That it is. Interestingly enough, held by the same people as do EGX over in the UK's.
Well, what does EGX stand for?
I have no idea, except they think we smell. That's why we're not getting any press passes.
If I had to guess, I'd say maybe Electronic Games Expo. But that is just a guess.
But hey, you went to PAX and met a bunch of friends, made new friends, and I assume got drunk.
2 of the 3. You're a ringer for there.
So no new friends.
Well, hopefully, but we'll see. No, I did get to meet up with some folks that folks we've talked to on the show and who are working in the games industry. Did make what I hope to be some new friends. We'll see. And I didn't get drunk. I did have a few drinks while I was there. I did go out and hang out a little bit. I even wandered around Seattle at night just because there's something about a city at night, the atmosphere that I've always enjoyed just walking around, especially if it's like really late at night and there's nobody on the streets. Just something about, the dark sky and the way the city is lit. I don't know.
Were you sleepless in Seattle?
And taking another easy joke. No, it was just one of those things where I was kind of winding down, and each night after like the day I flew there, and then went and hung out with a buddy of ours, Ash, who's one of the guys that runs the Rated NA podcast, and just wandering back to the hotel. I hadn't been to Seattle before other than flying through and having layovers, so I wanted to kind of walk around a little bit. And then the next night, I went out after the festivities of PAX, and again, when that stuff was over, just to kind of wind down, I just walked around the streets a little bit. So Seattle is in many ways, it can be a very beautiful city. There's a lot of greenery and parks around, and a lot of tall buildings and cool lighting. So
a lot of Starbucks.
Oh yeah, plenty of those.
So, but then, who did you meet? What did you see?
Well, we got to I got to hang out briefly with Danny Woodford. She's the community manager for Disco Elysium, and also got to sit down and play that game a little bit. I know that game's been a little bit on our radar, but I gotta say, man, I'm sitting down and I'm playing this game. The introduction to where you're doing and the character creation was really interesting with how they've done that. It's like these different parts of your brain kind of slowly awaking and talking to you, and the cool thing about that is as you go through the game, they have commentary on different things that are going on. So it's like your brain is still talking to you, but it was almost like playing in a painting. The art style of that game feels very much like it's some kind of like painting, and you're getting to wander around in it, and that was pretty neat as well. It's a really dark story for, I think I played maybe 30, 40 minutes at the most. And it's a pretty dark story, but it was very interesting.
Probably mentioned it's a bit of a detective whodunit, no?
Yes, it is. Yeah, sorry. And you start out at I guess, waking up from like a drunken, well, we'll just say a drunken night where you passed out and nearly died. But yeah, there's a murder that you've been supposed to be investigating, and you get up the next day, and then that's where the whole process starts.
Suddenly I had an image of the beginning of TV series Happy.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Oh, check it out. Slightly different, but stylistically there might be some overlap.
But yeah, Danny was real sweet. It was cool to get to meet her in person. I know we'd talked to her once before on Comic Shop Talk episode. TJ and I got a chance to chat with her, and she seems to be pretty happy with what she's doing with the community management there, so that's awesome.
She seems to be enjoying her work. I think that's awesome.
And then next up after that was I ran into the Overload devs, Project Overload. These are the guys, several of whom, I can't remember if it was several or all of whom, who've worked on a game back in the, I would say, mid to late 90s called Descent. It's basically they call it a 6 degrees of freedom. It's more or less like a flight simulator, twin stick shooter type thing. It was a lot of fun back then, and these guys have done a really great job of bringing that freedom of movement and the fun into this new edition of the game.
Ooh, that was Matt Toslock all the way back in, March, April of 2016. So and if I'm not mistaken, they're called Revival Team.
I believe you're right. Yeah, I didn't run into Matt. I'm going to kick myself now because the gentleman I ran into, I think his name started with a T. Trevor, maybe? Okay, bad Drac. I can't remember exactly who I talked to on that one.
And suddenly we know why we're not getting press passes.
I wasn't running around with a notebook to take notes, which I should have been.
Yeah, I'll show you mine when we're done.
Oh, jeez. But then after that, a little bit of a surprise to me, but a welcome surprise I thought was really cool. I got to run into Danny Weinbaum. He was working on Eastshade, and we talked to him a while back. And this type of game, the look of the game, it's compared many times to like Skyrim, which I absolutely understand, why the visual style is very similar. But this isn't like an action adventure RPG type game. In some ways, it is kind of an RPG, and there's a definite story that you play through, but this is a much more relaxed adventure, beautifully crafted environment that you're going through. Basically, you're a painter who's shipwrecked, and then you're encountering all these creatures as you go along, and you're helping to solve problems by, doing these various paintings, and you're collecting different materials along the way so that you can build your canvases and make these paintings. So it's a very relaxed environment, but it's very beautifully detailed.
Yeah, we had them on, early January 2017. And that was for Leaving Lindo, the prequel to it that looked absolutely gorgeous. But I hope you managed to give them a big old hug. I'll give Danny a big old hug.
Yeah, it was, I shook his hand.
So sociable.
Yeah, well. I will say, too, though, that some of the character designs in there were really neat. There was this, most of them are humanoid animals. Well, actually, all of the ones that you see are humanoid animals. And a lot of the ones that you encounter at first they're like monkeys or chimps. And then there's these other ones that are kind of like an antelope or a deer. But there was one I encountered out in the woods that was this owl. Really great design. And the young lady that was there with him, she was the one that designed that particular character. And the detail was great. Even the eyes. Like, the eyes are what really made it stand out. It almost looked like, there was a galaxy within those eyes. They were kind of star-flecked. It was really cool.
Any news on when the game's coming out?
You would ask me questions I don't have immediate notes to answer.
Okay, next time bring notebook. It's not easy being a pretend journalist, is it?
Hey, I'm still learning the ins and outs of it.
Cool, when you're done with that, can you teach me?
I know that I asked him that question too, and I can't find where I have the information. Well, definitely, and for anyone looking for maybe a more relaxing experience, or if you just enjoy exploring a beautifully crafted world, which is half the fun of Skyrim anyway, is just going around and exploring, definitely check out Eastshade.
What else did you see? Who else did you meet?
Well, I'll take a quick step back to my first day there, and right before I actually made it into the convention center, there were these guys out giving out T-shirts and pins from something called Robot Cash. And basically, this is setting up to be a market for buying and reselling games. They're going to let you resell your digital games. So instead of, whereas with Steam, you buy something and now that game is locked into your account, and you get done playing it and it just sits there and you never get anything back from it, you'll be able to resell it. And it looks like the way that they're doing that is they have their own marketplace set up, and you'll get 25% back from what you spent in their token system, which you can then use to purchase other things within their economy there. So it's also, there's an option that will allow you to set up your system so it can mine tokens for you when you're not playing games. So I don't know, this was kind of interesting, and I know we talked to 𝑑𝑐𝒒𝒒 before, and I thought this might be somebody that would be definitely worthwhile to talk to and get some more information for folks on how exactly this whole system is going to work.
But that's kind of curious, because are they looking to make their own marketplace, sell the games and then you can sell it back to them, or are they going to try and integrate GOG, Steam, etc.?
From what I understood, and again, this will be something worth getting them on to talk about, but from what I understood, it's going to be their own marketplace. And, they intend to be in their own words, they intend to be very friendly and open to indies as much as they are to AAA developers. So, and they're looking to curate the market space. They have a list of folks on their site, or I should say a list of developers, which include folks like 505 Games, Paradox Interactive, THQ Nordic, inXile Entertainment, just to name a few, that have already signed up to be part of this marketplace.
Okay, so they're definitely hitting the AA. I'm thinking there isn't a AAA that I can, think of right now that would go for something where games can be sold back. Because they, pretty much all of them, hate the fact that you can go and bring your physical copy back to a store and the store will pay you $5-7 for it. So, I like the idea. The moment you say things like mining tokens, I'm out, but the other idea seemed okay. And selling back games, not something I do. I wouldn't sell back a game, it's just not me. But I like the idea that it's an option, but as at the same time, we know Sony hates it, we know pretty much every AAA hates it.
I don't know. I've got so many games in my Steam library that I don't play anymore. If I could have sold all those back for 25% back in a token system that I could then use to buy games, that would have bought me a few AAA titles. Or even if there was no AAA on the market, it still would have bought me a few AA or even several indie titles for that same coin. So I don't know. I get the appeal for sure. I don't know if I'd want to use my system to mine tokens or not, but I don't know. I guess it would depend on how that works and, how intensive it is on the system.
Yeah, it's a red flag for me because of a lot of related issues with the whole cryptocurrency, etc. So, but, let's see, if they want to come on, let's have them on and talk to them. As you'll probably say, when I don't want to resell my games, most of mine are console games, physical copies, etc. I actually like having them on display. It's weird, I know, but that's like my bookshelf. Except I have a bookshelf.
No, that's totally understandable. When you have physical copies, it's just most of what I buy anymore is digital just because I don't have the space to put them.
Oh, luxury problems.
Yeah, right? I filled up the space that I would put video games with action figures instead.
Yeah, I've seen the pictures.
So, let's see. After that was a game called Roundguard. This is a bouncy physics roguelite, and I know they're mentioning that it's going to be on Steam. I don't remember if they said it was going to be on mobile, but this looks like a perfect game for mobile and or Switch, just for, being able to take it with you on the go and being a great fun time waster. It's not the typical kind of game that I usually look for, but I did sit down and play it and had a pretty good time with it. But basically, you're like this little dungeon adventurer trying to get through these dungeons, and the way that it works is the characters are all designed and all the creatures are designed in kind of a roundish ball shape, hence the name Roundguard. And then you get launched off of this kind of catapult thing and bounce around the screen. So anything that you hit kind of causes you to bounce There's like pots, and there's different pickups you can get for mana and health and different types of treasure. There are creatures that will do damage to your character. And then eventually you kind of bounce your way down, towards the bottom where there are all these like spike traps set up. But there's a cushion that goes back and forth. So if you're able to time both the shot that you make and the angles that you go, you can bounce off that cushion and then not take any damage. And you just keep going, and through each of these dungeons you pick up power-ups and you can pick up health to keep going, but then eventually your health will get taken out and you die and start over. So it was kind of a fun, like I said, I think it'd be a fun time waster.
Should I go for the easy joke again?
Which one's that?
Well, it's a game where you're this round character. The game's called Roundguard. It's made by a company called 𝑑𝑨𝑿 𝑾𝒆𝒂. I can see how it appeals to you.
Oh, personal shot right across the bow.
And the description talked about playing Dungeons and Dragons in a basement. So yeah, it seems up to your alley, down your alley. It looks cute, let's put it that way. And yeah, it says wish list on Steam.
Yeah.
Nothing else about platforms.
Yeah, it was definitely cute. I'm glad I sat down to play it and got a chance to talk to those guys. We're going to reach out, see if we can get them on the show at some point too.
What next?
Next was this I want to say new, but I don't know if it's it's not necessarily new. It's just more or less new to me. This genre of the 4 versus 1. There was a game that was set up with Discord. They're partnering, it looks like, with Discord. They're going to be released exclusively on the Discord market to start with, and it's called Last Year the Nightmare. And this concept of this game is that you're a group of teenagers who have, I think they said, woken up in like this nightmare reality. So almost think like Stranger Things with the upside down, but this is a different dimension that you've woken up in. And they were just showing off, I think, the first level, which is like a high school. But the twist in this nightmarish scenario is that the additional player is a serial killer, some kind of mutated serial killer. And I got to tell you, they do not shy away from the brutality in this thing at all. It definitely looks like it's going to be one of those games that's every bit as much fun to watch people play as it is to play. And that, I think, is kind of a winning combination when it comes to this type of game. It's definitely a horror type game. But, I mean, it looked pretty good. It ran well. People looked to be having a lot of fun playing it. And it was cool to stand there and watch some of these folks do this stuff, too.
So straight from the cute and bouncy and cuddly and nice to horror, nightmare, flamethrowers, gore all over the place. You really know how to do transitions, don't you?
Got to mix it up and keep everybody on their toes.
No, it's, asymmetrical, think Evolve, just a little bit more high schooly.
Yeah, and when I say they don't shy from the brutality, I'm not kidding. Like, one of the serial killers that you see is like this mutated guy with a tentacle arm, and he would grab people and choke them and like drag them off, and then his finisher, at least, I'm assuming there's one, maybe, I don't know if there's more, but the one that I saw repeated several times when he would take someone out is he would beat their face several times into the ground, then grab a pair of scissors, stick them in their forehead, and shove their head back into the ground. It's like, holy crap, this is definitely like rated R horror type stuff.
It sounds gratuitous.
I think it probably does hit those levels at a certain point. There's what did they call him? I think did they call him the Titan or the Hulk or something? It was another. When you play as the serial killer, when you get killed, you can choose a different mutation to come back as, and the other one that people were frequently choosing was this massive hulking figure, and he would pick people up and throw them. And I saw several times that whoever was playing that brute would take whoever they were carrying into the basketball gym and play basketball with the human. They would literally throw him at the basketball rim.
Okay. So, basically anybody who goes for this should probably be put on a watch list.
Oh, come on. People can enjoy horror without having to go that far.
They can, yes. It's a nice outlet. As long as they just do it in games, sure, go ahead.
So, yeah, I definitely, they were really cool to talk to. Answered a lot of the questions that I had at the show there, and definitely want to see if we can talk to these folks as well. Because like I said, this is going to be at least one of the first games I saw listed for Discord, and I'm interested to talk to them, not just about the game itself, which I think is going to be an awesome thing to watch on Twitch, but I'd like to see what their experience has been like, setting things up for Discord with their game.
Well, it'll be interesting. The integration to Discord, it says right there on the website, coming first to Discord, fall 2018. So yeah, 3 months exclusivity. If there's any way, integrating streaming with the Discord as well, because that seems like an idea, and then having people in Discord or on Twitch or whatever you want to stream on, kind of affect the mutations, could be a nice little twist.
You were saying that, and it reminded me of something. So I don't know how many times you've watched horror movies with other people, or if you've seen the joke about, don't run up the stairs, where people are like yelling at the screen watching a horror movie. The funny thing about this game is people in the crowd, even one of the developers themselves I saw doing that, where it was like, no, don't go that way, or, So it was kind of hilarious. It was that same kind of experience, or very similar kind of experience, where people were watching other people play, but we're still kind of, yelling at them about which direction to go and which direction not to go.
Yeah, horror movies, horror TV shows, horror games, they don't actually do anything for me. I find them usually uninteresting. I mean, the game mechanics, etc., I can enjoy, and the asymmetrical gameplay, absolutely. But the horror settings generally just don't. Oh no, do not run up those stairs. Oh look, splattered. Or, oh no, don't run away from the rest of the group. Oh, caught in the woods, chopped to pieces. Yay.
Yeah, and they said they were going to have multiple locations that are like your typical horror movie locations. So I know they said, in addition to the high school, I think they said that there was a hospital, and I think he said there was a shopping mall, but I can't remember what others that they were planning for release.
It sounds very American, the whole shopping mall and high schools and stuff.
Yeah, I can see that.
It isn't that we don't have them over here, it's just never been much of a culture thing over here the same way it is by you guys. Or to put another way, I've never heard anybody say, hey, let's go to the mall and hang out. It's just not a thing.
We did hang out there a little bit when I was kids, but I'm trying to think, like, there were plenty of better places to hang out.
Basement with a game of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, there you go. And I did that plenty too. All right, so next up, Avalanche Studios with Generation Zero. This one looks like it ought to be some fun. It's going to be a co-op shooting game. And the story for the game starts off with, you've gone off to an island for like a little mini vacation or a camping trip. When you come back to the mainland, things have changed, and basically there are these machines, running and flying around that are extremely aggressive and combative towards you, and you've got to kind of figure out like what happened, what's going on, and the mechanics. It's fun to play. Unfortunately for me, I was playing on console, and anytime I play a shooter on console, it's rough because I'm just not used to using the controller. And, I managed to survive for quite a bit, but then I finally got taken down about, I don't know. I think I lasted until about the last 30, 45 seconds of the demo. And at that point, I just wasn't going to respawn, only because there wasn't that much time for me to get back into it anyway. But it was fun to play, even with the controller. I like the look of the game, and I definitely want to get to know more about this story. And because it's co-op, it's definitely one I'll look at picking up, because I'm sure it's one we'll play at our LAN sessions.
Okay, I'm just going to run off in a weird direction, apologies, but I was playing Boundless yesterday, which was the first time I played a real Minecraft-ish game, and then mouse keyboard also, which I'm not used to. I'm used to the controllers. Holy F, I was constantly kind of letting go and, okay, I have to move, hands on keyboard, move. I have to turn, hands on mouse, turn. No. Give me a controller. Dear Lord.
Somebody's looking at the show notes. Yeah, this game is being published by THQ Nordic, which is also the publishers for Boundless. I got an opportunity to talk to one of the devs there, and we bonded a little bit over Zelda Breath of the Wild. Not in the way that you're probably thinking, though, because he was talking a little bit about the crafting system and whatnot, putting weapons together, and I said, well, okay, are you guys going to have the same kind of like weapon degradation that Breath of the Wild has? And he was like, oh, hell no. He said, I worked on that crafting system. He says, I can't stand how quickly weapons break in Zelda. And there's no way I was going to let that in the game. And I'm like, that's awesome. So, because he said that was one of the reasons he hasn't finished Breath of the Wild. And it's honestly probably one of two reasons that I haven't finished it yet either.
Yeah, the 1 hour I played Boundless, I think I went through 2 shovels, 2 axes. No, my hammer is still whole. It hasn't broken yet. And my totem is about to break, so I stopped using that. No fun. Anyways, Generation Zero. That looks pretty cool. It reminds me of a story from, what is it, Poland, Ukraine? That's also being made into a game, but that's a completely different one. But those tanks, the runners, the seekers, the tech, I like the looks of them, and it's nice the way they've done it. I like the tank with these huge legs and then weird body that kind of hangs down as if it's a spider bot that's been chopped in parts.
Oh yeah, I loved the design of the robots, especially like the dog ones that I kept running into. These were running around; they were really cool.
Is that the seeker one or the runner one?
I don't remember the names of the individual bots.
I think it's the runner one, the media. There's a 3rd out of 4, yeah.
Yeah, but it's definitely fun. It looks really good, and it's fun to play. And because it's co-op, it's a shoe-in for our LAN sessions. So I'm looking forward to that when it comes out.
Oh, network co-op, please.
But then just one, I guess, quick more note about BioMutant before we move on. Even the character customization in that was pretty awesome. Setting up the character and the different options and how it would morph the character on screen based on the options you were choosing. That game I've had on my wish list for a while now, and I'm definitely looking forward to when that one comes out. Unfortunately, it's only single player. I did wish that would have some co-op in there because I just don't, as I've said before on the show, I don't get as much time to play single player games as I'd really like to. But with cooperative games, we have LAN sessions every couple weeks, so I get the chance to play those more frequently. But it looks great, and I'm looking forward to playing both of those.
The visuals, the character style makes me think it's Rocket Raccoon the game.
There was some jokes that we made about that when we saw the first initial trailer announcing it, that, it did kind of have that feel to it.
Yeah, just saying. It's except for it's not small Groot, it's small robot insect thing. But it looks nice. I like the looks of it, and I still want to play more single-player games that aren't just Sims, so this might be one of them. This actually looks really nice. Anybody listening, go over to the website. If we haven't put a link in, then it's biomutant.com and look for the gallery.
Well, awesome. Up next is a game called Element Space. And this is a turn-based combat game. Destructible battlefields, several different planets you can go to. Again, it looks great. The thing that always amazes me, and this is one of those titles too, that these indie studios, some of them is just a few people, some of them it's a team of folks. But when I went to PAX, I spent almost all of my time in the 2 indie areas. I barely even scratched the surface of any of the AAA stuff. And these guys working on these indie titles, if you're someone who plays a lot of AAA games and you haven't spent a lot of time looking at indie titles, definitely check these out, because they're putting out stuff that's on par, like quality-wise, with the AAA stuff. So it's really great to see that. And this is another one that looks like it'll be really great. I didn't get a chance to play this because I wasn't really waiting in any lines while I was there, and there were several folks sitting there playing. But I did hear good things from the guys that were playing. They seem to be enjoying the game.
Visually, this looks really nice. Turn-based combat can absolutely be fun, and if it's done right... I mean, I'm looking at just the still pictures, the maps. It looks like they have some horizontal options, at least, some movement horizontally. Is a nice break in many of these turn-based games tend to be really flat. So props to them for making what appears to be more interesting maps than many, and visually, yeah, I can see what you mean, that it's, again, visually up there with at least what we would expect from AA games. I don't know, AAA, because it tends to be other things that dictate when we get into AAA territory.
Yeah, well, overall, I mean, it's a lot of these guys, what they're doing is very impressive. So, and this was one of those that looked cool. People seem to be really enjoying playing it.
So, what's next?
Let's see. Up next, a game that you had mentioned before called 𝑁𝒂𝒂𝒄. This was, it's very story-driven. It's a narrative game where you're, and the colors are all, real neon and like kind of dark with like, purple highlights and whatnot. But the game itself, you're playing basically like an Uber driver, and you're taking passengers around. And so your car is an electric car, so occasionally you'll have to stop and charge your car. you have to make different decisions. Your customers will ask you to do certain things that could get you in trouble, either with, the local law enforcement, by picking somebody up in like a red zone or something. But it was a very, I want to say, separate from a lot of games that might be more, how am I going to put this, like adrenaline fueled, running around and lots of action and stuff. This was a much more relaxing experience, kind of like Eastshade, where you get an opportunity to kind of sit back, relax, and just kind of be part of the story, choose your own adventure kind of deal. And the funny thing was, I remember I got up, they end the demo just as it starts to get really interesting, because basically the demo introduces you to the game mechanics, and you're playing through and taking people around and whatnot. And then just as the story starts to get really interesting, it ends the demo. So they leave on kind of a cliffhanger, so that you want to come back and see what's going on.
Nice. But I like you already declared basically that in the game you play as somebody who is morally and ethically corrupt. Nice.
Wait, do what?
Well, you did say you play as an Uber driver, and let's be honest, Uber is one hell of a shitty company. Personal opinion.
Well, I was using Uber as an example. I don't know that I would lump every driver into the politics of the CEO or former CEO or whatever.
Dude, it's the whole fucking management team that were behaving that way. It's the HR team. It's the behavior towards women, towards laws, towards the drivers. The idea of just thoroughly monitoring everybody. It's the developers who wrote most of the whole monitoring and surveillance stuff they have. They know what they did. You can't... Okay, perhaps not the drivers, but anybody beyond that working at Uber has to be, by definition, a shitty human being. Because that company is thoroughly shitty. Anyways, my opinion on Uber, and if you disagree, then I'm going to assume you're also morally and ethically void.
Well, I'd say then this is probably also a little bit of a social commentary on that, because the cab driver that you play as used to work for a company, I think in the game is called Capra, but actually comments that it was a real crappy experience working for that company, which was why they left, and they're now working for this NeoCab company as opposed to the old one.
And if I remember the story in this one, you play as one of the few human drivers left. Everybody else are automated and driverless cars.
Yep, yeah, that's one of the other things about the game, is that most things are automated, and you are, if not the only, one of the last few human drivers.
So as somebody who's traveled half the planet for work, one thing I always do, take a taxi, and I would always, when they start introducing driverless taxis, I would go for somebody with a human, because always on the way back from the airport or whatever, talk to the driver, find out what's going on, what's the place like, where is it safe, etc. They are an invaluable source of information. Plus, I literally rented taxi drivers for whole days just to take me around the country. They're awesome. They can be tour guides, etc.
Well, I've never done that part. I have talked to taxi drivers when I get into someplace new just to find out a little bit about an area. And that, you're right, that they've got information you wouldn't get from a machine necessarily. But that's kind of cool. I never even thought about, Well, I guess maybe we have done that a little bit when we visited different places where we would rent a taxi driver to go. So yeah, I guess we have kind of done that. Sorry, mind wandering.
No, we did it. I know this is very off topic. Morocco, we did it, for example. We had the same driver a couple of times. We liked him, got a business card, and then just asked him, so how much for taking us around like this and explain us the area? Oh, this and this much, because it's not unheard of that people ask this, so they kind of have an idea. And he took us to, also some places tourists don't go to. Like, we got to see the garages of some of the embassies and stuff, like getting in and seeing old cars that's driven in Nazi Germany and whatnot. It was a freaking awesome trip. And, we had a Saturday we needed to kill anyway. In Mexico, I rented a taxi driver to pick me up from work and drive me to work every single day. Turned out to be cheaper than renting a car because the insurance on the car was insanely expensive. Because Mexico, particularly where I was not particularly safe. So there was basically, oh, you're going there? Yeah, we're just going to add a few hundred per day to our rental for the insurance part. Okay. Hey, how much do you want to drive me back and forward every day? For you, sir, $75. Done.
Yeah, I kind of had that experience in Ireland. The insurance was, I think, more than the car rental for the week. And that was kind of insane. But It was a fun experience to drive, and at least I know in the future if I have to rent a car there, how much I'm going to have to pay on the insurance.
Yeah, just Ireland's probably too expensive to rent taxi drivers for longer periods of time, but in other places, because it's a solid gig for them. If they know for a week they're driving somebody around, yeah, it's sure money. Done. But no, you're right. I brought up 𝑁𝒂𝒊𝒄 a while ago. I like the visual style, I like the very relaxed style that it seems to be targeting. But at the same time, the problems, I don't know how far you got into the story. Did you get to where she's looking for her friend?
It starts out with her looking for her friend. So basically the way that you're introduced to the game is the character you're playing as has just moved to this city, and she's trying to get a hold of her friend who she's supposed to be rooming with. And she's having trouble getting a hold of her. So like I went through an entire first ride, and then I don't think it was until after the first ride, and then I went and charged the car before I finally got a hold of her friend, or her friend texted her back or whatever. And like I said, that's where the story starts to take a twist and gets more interesting. You end up getting pulled over. The way that the demo ends is you end up getting pulled over by the cops, and they're asking about your friend. They're looking for information on the friend that you're looking for. So that's, like I said, it starts to get really interesting there. And then they're like, okay, well, come back at release.
Yeah, and it's, I guess, visually also the way that it's set, it reminds me of some older games that just had, here's a set piece and interact with a fairly static screen. There's not necessarily any action to deal with. And I think we need more of those.
Yeah, I think if I were to classify the game, I'd say it's very much a visual novel, choose your own adventure, and you just choose dialogue options as you go through. But it was nice to kind of sit and relax and do something a little bit different than a lot of the other stuff that was available there. I like the other stuff that was available there too, but it was nice to do something different.
So, next game.
All right, next up is a game called Rebel Galaxy Outlaw, and this was one that I didn't. I can't remember if I made it to the first day or the second day, but it was one that when I was talking to Ash, he suggested that I definitely seek this one out and try it out. This is a space flight simulator, shoot 'em up type game. It's a lot of fun to play. I really enjoyed playing it.
Yeah, I'm checking it out. I can't really figure out what kind of mechanics it is, because it doesn't really show.
Well, the demo itself, you play, you're flying around in a spaceship, and so there's space combat and stuff, but you're not going to be locked into that spaceship the entire time with this. So you are going to have other things that you'll be able to do, wander around spaceships. I think they even mentioned that there's like, I can't remember if they said you play cards or not, but I know they did mention something about playing pool. So like you'll wander into like a bar and you can like play pool and, earn a reputation or credits and stuff that way.
It looks very much comic book style visually.
Yeah, I'd say it's kind of a, in some ways, it's kind of a mix between almost comic book and then, CGI type graphics. But it's not like, for those of you who hear comic book and maybe think cel shaded like Borderlands, it's not like that. It's just more of I guess maybe a style of characters and spaceships and stuff that are something you might expect to see in a comic.
It looks hand-drawn, I'd almost say.
I think a lot of the material for it is hand-drawn, but the game itself doesn't have that same exact look.
Yeah, it looks like something needs to be checked out more. But yeah, the trailer, etc., doesn't really show enough, I think. That needs to be shown more on the website.
Yeah, hopefully we can get them on here and we'll get some gameplay running in the background that'll show more of it. But it was enjoyable to play. I found the mechanics were, pretty quick to get used to and fun to play. At least the space flight part. I didn't get to see anything besides that at the PAX West demo, but it was still, it was a good time to fly around and blow some stuff up.
Good. What else?
Next up is a husband and wife team, and they're making a game called With Friends Like These. And the concept is you're this, I wasn't sure if it was really an organism or a spaceship that's got these two colors. One is blue and one is pink. And you have to work together. And basically the game, or I should say the background screen for the game, is constantly divided in areas of blue or pink. And so when you're in the blue area, the person controlling the blue character is the pilot, and the pink one is the gunner. But when you go to the other area, the pink area, it shifts, and then the pink person is the pilot, and the blue person is the gunner. And also the creatures that you encounter will have either blue or pink eyes or both. And you have to basically work together constantly, shifting roles so that, you're piloting around the screen, avoiding any shots coming at you and taking out the creatures that are coming at you. And I thought that's kind of cool. It's an interesting way to give each person an opportunity to play both as pilot and as gunner, and to force them really to work together.
It looks really nice. I saw the announcement of it a while back and was kind of intrigued. And it's good to hear the actual mechanics explained, because the announcement said you played together, but didn't really do enough to kind of reveal it. So it's good to hear. I think this one could be entertaining to play. Yeah. I hope they come out on the PlayStation, because there we have the remote share play.
Yeah, I know they were targeting Switch, and I can't remember which other platforms. I think it'll be out on PC. But any console really, because I can see, controller, this is a lot of fun to play with a controller. The gentleman I spoke to, the half of the team, the husband, he was really cool. Seemed very excited about the game, which is awesome. And this is another one I think that could be certainly fun to watch people play too.
I like how you point out the husband was excited about it, and the wife.
Well, I don't know if she was there. He was presenting the game at the time that I was at the booth, so he was the one that I talked to.
Okay, that's just the way you said it. It just sounded a little bit incriminating.
Oh, no. From what I was able to infer, it sounds like they had a good time building the game and coming up with the concept for the game. But when I was at the booth, at least, I was only able to speak with him about it. So.
Okay, but yeah, a cute little game. There's not much else I can say.
Well, and right next to that was one that I literally saw a trailer for the day that I got off the plane and was headed to PAX. And it's called Tock, A Tale for Two. This is another game that forces people to play cooperatively. It's a 2-player game. And I gotta say, I was really impressed with how they handled the multiplayer part of it. But what was funny about her explaining it to me, it's 2 developers, if I'm remembering correctly. I think these folks are from Sweden. You're clearing your throat?
Well, they're from the University of Copenhagen.
Ah, okay. See, I told you my memory's not the greatest.
But yeah, they might actually be Swedish, because there's a lot of Swedes going over there. But yeah, I think they're from Stockholm. Okay. So yeah, they might be Swedish, but the game was apparently started out at the Copenhagen University.
Well, and that was what she said too. Is I think it was her and her teammate there. I think they started it as a college project. But so, what's so interesting about this game? This is another kind of like puzzle story type game, and it was funny because she had to explain it to me 2 times, because in my own mind I was wrapped up in trying to figure out how they had done crossplay between Android, Apple, Nintendo Switch, PC, and like all the platforms that they're looking at trying to hit. And I'm going, how did you guys manage to do that? And she started to explain it, and for some reason it just didn't hit me the first time around. And when she explained it the second time, I went, oh, wait a minute. So the way that they've done this is by kind of not doing it. There is no netcode. There's nothing that links the two of you together except for the human beings. They've made the humans the network. And so the way that it works is when you sit down to play the game, you either play as player 1 or you play as player 2. And you, as player 1, you can only get to a certain point in the level, and you cannot get any further until you get information from player 2, and vice versa. And then when you both get through the first puzzle, it moves on to the next level. And I thought, that is such an interesting and creative way for being able to release a game, a cooperative game, on multiple platforms. And I know it wouldn't work for every type of game, but I think it looks like it works really well for this game.
Yeah, trust Sony to figure out how to mess that up.
Well, I don't know yet. I didn't see anything. I saw the platforms they were targeting were mobile and PC, and I'm pretty sure when I talked to her, she said they were looking at also releasing on Switch. So I don't know if this will be on Xbox or PlayStation, but only time will tell.
It's a nice mechanic. I like this. And I guess at some point we'll have to sit down and play, because if we're the network, then we can do that anywhere in the world. Dum dum dum.
Well, and I think that the other thing that's really cool about this type of game mechanic is that it's possible. I should have asked about saves, so I don't know if you save at a certain point, but if you can, then our time difference won't matter either. Because whereas you and I are separated by a 9-hour time difference, if we can get to a certain point and save the game and come back to it later, we can actually, almost do this as a play by email or play by Discord.
And if your government has its way, we'll be separated by about 40 or 50 years. Oh, off topic, sorry. Yeah, I like how this mechanics works. I've seen something similar once way back when. But yeah, it's nice seeing them actually go that way and say, we don't need all the fancy net code.
Yeah, it was just one of those things that I thought it was such a creative way to solve that problem, and it was really interesting. Or at least that made it really interesting to me.
We shall chase them down somehow.
And up after that, in fact, I went and saw these folks right after that. It's from Chain Awesome Games, a game called Aftercharge. And this is a 3 versus 3 multiplayer shooter. And they also had a really interesting mechanic in a way that they're kind of something that they're adding to this genre. So you're both basically playing, you play on one team or another. And on, say, Team A, you play as a group of characters that are invincible. They cannot be hurt. And they are protecting these power nodes that are scattered across the map. So their job is to keep the power nodes up. Team B is invisible, so they cannot be seen, and their job is to run around and destroy the power nodes. And when you run up to a power node and start attacking it, you become visible, so then the other team can see you and try to stop you. You can be killed if you're invisible, or on the invisible team, I should say. But the other neat thing is that as long as there's one invisible player still alive on the map, they can also just run by and tag you really quick and get you right back up. And it doesn't break their invisibility. The only other thing that breaks your invisibility is if you happen to run directly in front of one of the invincible players. They have a little attachment on their gun that creates like this little laser leash. And so as long as you stay directly in front of them, it will allow them to see you so they can try to shoot you. And the game matches can go pretty quick. But it was one of those things I got to sit down and I played a match, and it was a lot of fun to play. I like the cartoony kind of art style to it. And I don't know. I thought this was another interesting shift in just a multiplayer shooter mechanic that could be kind of a nice addition to the genre.
It looks nice. I'm kind of enjoying the visuals, the dark and very light highlights, plants, whatever, bullets and lasers. The electrosynth sounds. The music is pretty good on it as well. So I'm worried because it would be very much potentially boring on one side, waiting for the invisible ones to start doing things, and then frantic chasing them around, and then back to boring again.
Well, I will say, at least for my gameplay, the maps themselves aren't particularly large, and I think that would be by design to keep it from having too much downtime. So it didn't take very long on either side before combat started, because of course, the invisible guys are running around immediately trying to take out the power nodes, and then as soon as they start attacking a power node and become visible, the invincible guys are on them.
So no, I'd love to try it. Unfortunately, it seems to say Xbox, Switch, and PC. Boo.
I keep telling you, get a PC.
Or an Xbox.
No, I've never said get an Xbox. I don't have anything against Xbox. It's just that, a lot of the stuff, maybe not everything, but a lot of the stuff that'll come to Xbox now will come to PC as well. And there'll be more options on PC typically than Xbox. I'm sure there'll still be some Xbox exclusives that won't come to PC, but I don't know. I think you have a lot more gaming options when it comes to PC.
Yeah, not when you have to use a controller anyway. I'll stick with my PlayStation until, let's face it, Sony's doing everything they can to drive me away.
Another dig on Sony.
Oh no, seriously, as I said last episode, Sony's behavior recently is a good reason for me to not get a PlayStation 5 once that releases. And it should be for everybody else, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know that I'll look at another PlayStation after this one. I guess it'll just depend, and I hate to say this, but it'll depend in part on the exclusives, because that's one of the reasons that I picked up the PlayStation I have now. I picked it up for Horizon Zero Dawn, and then I also picked up, I was gifted God of War, I think, for Christmas, and I've greatly enjoyed playing those. I haven't finished either one yet, but yeah, I don't know.
So, did you do anything else? See anything else?
Yep, one of the last ones I got a chance to look at was a game called Grimmstar, and this is another space flight sim shooter. This one, again, looks really awesome. One of the things that impresses me about these games, I haven't actually, I think, probably played a space flight sim since Free Space. And I don't remember exactly when that came out. I know it was a number of years ago. But these games, by far and large, just visually look so much better than what I remember of space flight sims. And they're a lot of fun to play. You getting to fly around in every which direction and, see some of the background with these amazing, planets and asteroids and ships and stuff that are out there.
Free Space, Descent Free Space, that's 20 years ago, mate. Like 1998.
I don't think, was it Descent Free Space? I don't think it was a Descent game. Maybe it was. I don't know.
It might. You're in the US. There's something there. I don't think it was called Descent Free Space in the US. I think it might only have been called Free Space over there, or Free Space: The Great War. There was some weird naming, and yeah, there's a lot of history in that one. We literally have to get Team Revival back on because it's actually related a little bit to them and to why their game is not called Descent, but it's called Overload.
Yeah, but either way, that game looks amazing. It was fun to play, and I'd love to get them on the show to talk a little bit more about it as well.
So this one's difficult for me to comment on because the website just said, under construction, which is, a big flashing red light. The few pictures that's on the Tweety looks nice. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and they did have, I think at the time that I went over there, I don't know if it was maybe just early. I want to say they maybe had one other guy playing, but I have seen stuff where like their booth was filled. Like I think it was all 4+ terminals that they had set up, people over there playing and having a good time with it. And like I said, when I sat down and played it, I definitely enjoyed it. These types of games played on a controller are no big deal to me. In fact, I prefer to play them on a controller, so that was no issue for me. And it seemed to fly well. So,
well, get us a trailer, get us a demo, get us something so we can see something and try something and do things. Preferably on the PlayStation. Preferably something with a controller. Anything else?
Nope, that was more or less my time, at least inside the convention center at PAX. I have to say that this was my first PAX, but it was also probably one of the best conventions that I've been to in a while. It was busy and packed, much like Comic-Con is, but I don't know if it was just because I was spending most of my time in the indie area. I had a much better experience here than I did at E3, and even in the past couple of years at Comic-Con.
Yeah, that does help. Gamescom, that's the one place you should be. It's in the indie area. The rest is just horrible.
So, and a quick special thanks. I would like to thank Ash from the Rated NA podcast. He was really cool with a lot of good tips and information to me for my first trip up there. He invited me to join him. I think it was Sunday night after a panel he ran, which was really cool. It was kind of like a surviving the apocalypse type thing. And he had a bunch of voice actors on the panel from various different video games. I think there was also there's a lady that runs the Indie Mega booth at PAX, and a gentleman that works for Bethesda as an influencer manager. And all of these folks were just awesome. They're very entertaining, very fun. They had a great time, going through the Choose Your Own Adventure game. And got an opportunity to kind of hang out with them a little bit after when we all went out and got drinks, and they were just really cool, down-to-earth people.
Well, I keep saying developers are also people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But no, nice you got to enjoy yourself a little bit instead of it just being work, and more work. Because let's face it, you're tired of this, having to play video games and meet people.
No, one of the things that I've kind of loved about doing this stuff with the podcast with you guys is that in some ways it does force me to get out of my comfort zone, out of my shell a little bit. I'm not typically, it's not very easy for me to be in a group of people I don't know and have a conversation. I never can figure out where to start the conversation. But doing stuff like this, either on the show and interviewing people, remotely over the internet, or in this case, going to PAX and talking directly with folks and, exchanging business cards and stuff, it really forces me out of that kind of little shell in a really positive way, and I'm glad I've done it because it actually has led to some really interesting interactions. And believe it or not, when I'm done doing an interview, I have so much more energy than I do like any other time. It's crazy how much it amps me up.
And we're ending now on a high point. If you're feeling down and blue, go and interview somebody.
There you go.
Anyways, wow, recording-wise, we're up on an hour. I hope somebody chops some of this stuff out. People, I have to leave, and TJ has to join, so talk to you all next week.
Adios. Be back in a few.
The Bamsters rated our show. Like, comment, and subscribe. Do it. Bacon commands you.
All right, and we are back from the break. So for those of you who stuck around with us in the earlier part, got a chance to hear about my trip to PAX West, but now we are moving on to our comic shop talk block of the month. And as always, with me today, I have TJ.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in. Good to, I guess, see everybody. No, I can't really see you, but yay! What's up?
I think TJ's commenting on the fact that we had to do this one a little bit remotely this week, so if we do end up with a little bit of issues on sound, apologies ahead of time, but still wanted to make sure to get this stuff out to you guys. Hope you guys enjoy. And first one up, this one, I will say, I'm not going to say it's necessarily specifically comic related, but it's kind of within the wheelhouse. I got kind of excited because it looks like Henry Cavill has been announced that he will be playing Geralt in the live-action Witcher series for Netflix.
Yeah, that should be really cool. I mean, I don't have a lot of history as far as The Witcher goes, but I've seen nothing but positive reactions out of people. One of the things that I've heard people say is how excited they are to see him playing this because he's so good and they feel he's wasted on Superman. Not because he makes a bad Superman, but because they're bad movies. So I think it's going to be really cool to see him involved in something where maybe he can get to flex more of his acting ability as well as get to do more action scenes, obviously. So maybe this should be the thing that helps him, especially because the Mission Impossible trailer looked really cool, but from what I had heard, the movie ended up falling flat, as did he.
I saw the movie. I didn't think he was bad, but I don't think he stood out in any real significant way as a character in that movie. I like the idea of him being casted as Geralt, though. I think that he probably will. I expect he'll do a good job with it, especially from what I've heard. He's already been a big fan and has rallied for the role. I think there was one guy on the show, Genius, was a little disappointed because I think he really wants Mads Mikkelsen to be cast as Geralt, which I think would also be an awesome choice.
Yeah, that he's a solid actor, and he's got a kind of interesting look to him, so I think that would certainly lend to it as well. But I also think that Henry Cavill's got that star power that a franchise like this, whether or not they realize it, is going to be looking for, because that's going to bring the butts into the buckets there. So, I mean, who knows? I think that there's potential for this to work out. I think it'll be another hit on Netflix's hands. So let's see where it goes.
Look at TJ using that Hollywood terminology, butts in the buckets.
No. Sir, that's wrestling terminology right there.
Well, cool. I just wanted to get that out there real quick for anybody who may not have heard the news. But our meat and potatoes, so to speak, is a topic that's near and dear to TJ's heart. He's once again, as G would say, he's going to talk about Nightwing. So I'm gonna turn him loose and let him explain what's going on and how he feels about it.
Well, yeah, it's frustrating. As usual, DC's got some of the greatest characters in comics, and you have people who just do stupid things with them. The upcoming issue of Batman, I think it's Batman issue 54. I'm sorry, I don't have my notes in front of me handy at the moment, but Nightwing gets shot in the head. Yes, that is right. Nightwing gets shot in the head. And the fallout from all of this is the new status quo going forward. This is not, oh, in a couple issues, Dick Grayson will be okay. This is going to be Dick Grayson's status quo for the future. Is in his recovery, Nightwing has forgotten everything that he knows. His fighting ability, his acrobatic ability, all the stuff he learned under the big top as a child, everything. It's all gone. And he has to relearn everything. And I just can't with this. I guess it's just one of those things where, and I try not to bring up names, obviously, because, you know, these are real people and, you know, they're all just doing their jobs. But since Dan DiDio came to DC in the early 2000s, there has been this mad-on to get rid of Nightwing. And I just don't understand why. You know, there's been the whole stance on if Dick Grayson isn't Robin, it's because he's Batman, and how Nightwing is just a placeholding role, or Nightwing is stupid, or what have you. And then there was the whole debacle in Infinite Crisis in 2000, I think that's 2005, where DiDio wants to kill Nightwing off, and the response from Mark Waid and Jeff Johns and a bunch of other guys was, you kill Batman before you kill Nightwing. So at the end of the story, instead of killing Nightwing, they had killed Superboy. And then maybe a year or two later, actually a couple years later, they end up calling the bluff and they kill Batman anyway. But then after that, since they can't kill Nightwing, they have Dick Grayson's secret identity exposed in front of the world on global television by Lex Luthor and the Legion of Doom and all that. And now, once again, now that we've gotten Nightwing back for a couple years now, because something always has to be done to this character, they do this. And I just, at a certain point, just kill him. And just kill the character already. I love Nightwing. You know, you guys have heard me talk about him before. It's my favorite superhero. The giant Nightwing tattoo on my leg. I mean, this is a character who really means a lot to me. But at a certain point, if you're going to keep doing stuff like this, just kill him. Just, you know, what's the point anymore? It just becomes torture porn.
Well, and I know you've told me before, nothing in comics is permanent, so even the amnesia could go away at some point. But it sounds like, considering the background stuff with what's been going on, you see this is not just a one-off that they're going to eventually take away or undo, but a continuing procedure where they're just trying to eventually take this character out.
I guess so, and I just don't understand. Is this, well, we can rebuild the character's personality to have him match the whole fuck Batman thing on the Titans TV show, because the timing on this is piss poor. If you're gonna have Dick Grayson not act like Dick Grayson, and you have this show coming up, unless they're going to have him act like the character on the show, and that's no good, because you have this character who has been established, especially the personality that Dick Grayson is. You've established who he is for the last 25 to 30 years. So it all just feels like bad decision making, and the worst part about it is it feels like it's not even, you know, there's creative decision making, then there's editorially driven decision making, and then there is the decision making that comes up on high, and that's what this feels like, and it's not okay.
Oh wow, so you think that maybe the F Batman thing inside the Titan show is something that's being driven behind the scenes, not just for the show's sake or to give it a mature attitude, but also so that they can take the character in that direction in the comics. I don't know that I would have made that connection there. You might be maybe a little bit of tinfoil going on, but I don't know. Who's to say you're wrong?
Look, for whatever it's worth, and, you know, your mileage may vary on this, I want to be wrong, you know? I'm not sitting here saying, "Oh yeah, this is totally the thing." I'm guessing here, but I've also seen enough happen where it wouldn't surprise me, and two, it definitely wouldn't surprise me. So it's just one of those things where after a while, shit or get off the pot, kill him or don't. But the constant affecting of the character in a way where the character ceases to be the character, there's I don't know, there's no point.
Well, let's turn this into a little bit of a hypothetical then, with all the background that you have for Nightwing and all the things that have happened. Just for my own curiosity's sake, and maybe the folks that listen, if you were going to take Nightwing out for any reason, how would you do it, and why would you choose that way to do it?
There's only one way you have him do it: saving Batman. You have to have. If Dick dies, well, there's two ways. You have him saving Batman, or you have him saving a classic Titans lineup, whether it's the original 5 as adults, Robin now Nightwing, Wonder Girl now Troia, Aqualad now Tempest, Kid Flash now Flash, and Speedy now Arsenal, or you have him saving the 80s Wolfman Perez team, which is over the last maybe 15 years or so has become the more well-known team because of the cartoon. But that one is Nightwing, Nightwing, Kid Flash, now Flash, Wonder Girl, Starfire, Cyborg, Changeling, aka Beast Boy, and Raven. It has to be saving one of those two teams, but I really think the impact comes from a moment where he dies saving Batman. And so much of it comes down to there's always this idea amongst fandom that Batman is infallible and Batman can't be beaten. And I think that's nonsense. The idea that not only is Batman, something is about to happen to Batman, but it takes Nightwing sacrificing himself to save him. So now Bruce has lost his son. People will tell me, oh, Damian and all that. No, at the end of the day, he raised Dick Grayson. He raised him to be the type of person who would sacrifice himself to save the people that he loves. And I think that there's real impact to that. And if you have to do it, it has to affect the characters that are in his life. And the thing about that is Dick Grayson is the focal point of the DC universe. Everybody in the DC universe connects back to Dick Grayson in a way more so than Superman. So that has to affect everybody. So if you're going to kill Dick, it has to be done for story purposes to further these characters and not because you dislike the character.
Okay, so I guess the question would be then, who would be the instrument and why? Like, who would you pick that would take him out, and why that character or villain as opposed to someone else?
That's a little tough. So there's a couple characters that you can do this with. If it's for the Titans, if it's him saving the Titans, it's either Deathstroke or it's Trigon, Raven's father. It has to come full circle. Trigon is who brought the new iteration of the Titans together in 1980, and Deathstroke was their biggest villain. I mean, everyone will talk about Deathstroke is a Batman villain, a Justice League villain, all this stuff. Deathstroke is a Teen Titans villain. Deathstroke is a Dick Grayson villain. So he can be all these other characters. I mean, he was in Green Arrow for a long time, but at his core, he exists as foil for both Dick Grayson and the Titans. So that's a pretty solid one there. But it would be one of those things where Deathstroke is he's got the drop on Batman somehow, and it takes Nightwing sacrificing himself to save Bruce. On the flip-flop, though, one of two villains, and no, neither of them are the Joker. If it's going to be regarding Nightwing, one of them would be Ra's al Ghul, and just because he's such a great villain, and just time and time again, Bruce has turned him down to be, his heir and all that, and I mean, to the point where he finally, went to Nightwing, asking him to take that role, and of course, Dick Grayson, looking at this guy like, dude, you got to be kidding me. If Bruce isn't gonna, what makes you think I would? So there's gonna come a point where Ra's al Ghul is going to want to get at Batman, and what better way to get at Batman than to get at the Knight Errant, the firstborn, essentially. And so I think that's a thing you could do. The other one, and specifically because, and I don't know about any of the others, like, I mean, you guys have heard me say it before, there are 3 Robins as far as I'm concerned. It's Dick, it's Jason, it's Tim, but all 3 of those characters have had their trial by fire against Two-Face. And I think it would be poetic if any Batman villain ended up killing off Nightwing, it's Two-Face. I think it would be really intense. You could play up the duality of it, since Batman and Robin / Batman and Nightwing have always been a pair. It's always the 2 of them. There's a lot of stuff that could be done. So I think that could be really intense. It could be really, really heartbreaking. You could have a moment where, because of the realization of what he did, the Harvey side of Two-Face is takes over and has this realization of what he's done. There's a lot that can be done to give it real story content. You just have to do this for story purposes, and not because you dislike the character or the character's role that they are in currently. So that's my take on it. But like I said earlier, your mileage may vary on this.
Well, that's interesting too, and I like the race idea, just because when I asked that question, the idea that was kind of germinating around in my head, since we're spitballing here, is that actually he's taken out helping, just the basic, superhero stuff, helping somebody who's getting mugged, or somebody who's getting beat down by a group of people or something like that. And, from somewhere off to the side, he's taken out by some mystery villain that doesn't even show their face. And like the cliffhanger at the end of the panels or whatever is, him laying in the street alone, dying, and the narrator speaking about how like no one would even know what he had done. And but he was okay with that, because he didn't do this for glory, he didn't do this for recognition, he did this to help people, and he managed to do that through his career. And then that could be a way to even potentially introduce a new villain into the series, or use someone like Ra's, who would be operating probably from the shadows anyway.
No new villain gets to be lucky enough to get the drop on a character like that.
Got to have somebody with some history there, right?
Yeah, I mean, to the point where when the Green Lantern Corps were destroyed in 1994, it wasn't a new villain, it was Hal Jordan.
Yeah, I still got to read that series where, what was it? Darkest Night, where the whole thing with the DC heroes dying and coming back in different versions, and Hal Jordan coming back as a White Lantern. I really need to read that at some point still.
Yeah, that's Blackest Night. That's, gosh, man, 2008 or 9. Yeah, that's great stuff.
All right, well, on that somber note, we'll move into something a little happier to end the block with this particular month. What comic book should folks be taking a look at this month, Teach?
Yeah, my comic pick for this episode is IDW Publishing's Bebop and Rocksteady Hit the Road issue 4. It's been a fun mini-series, and anything that focuses on the IDW iteration of Bebop and Rocksteady is always a plus, because those are 2 of the best written characters in comics, whether they get to be these like goofy henchmen or ruthless bad guys. Bebop and Rocksteady are always a lot of fun. But The reason why I'm telling you to pick this up is not because of Bebop and Rocksteady. It is because another character shows up in issue 4. That's right. It's the triumphant return of yours truly, Dr. Shevlin of the EPF. And yeah, I know I'm totally being self-serving on this one, but anytime I get to see this beautiful face in a comic book panel, I'm with it.
Oh, man. I would still remember how excited you were the first time you showed up, and I still think that's a supremely awesome thing to have a character modeled after you show up in any comic, and especially something like Turtles. So, dude, that's cool. Congrats, and I guess welcome back.
Haha, man, thanks, buddy. It's one of those things where it's still really surreal. I still never get tired of the idea that happened. And there's always this little part of me that hopes he ends up eventually getting mutated, because that only raises the potential for an action figure. And, you know, I like my toys, so let's hope that happens.
An action figure. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's pretty solid stuff. I mean, it's Ben Bates, it's Dustin Weaver, it's a solid creative team, and it's just Bebop and Rocksteady, you know, going on a big old road trip and having a good time. So it's fun stuff, man. And, you know, how do you go wrong with two characters as fun as those guys are?
Well, sweet. And on that note, we are going to end this week's recording. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. And we wanted to keep the comic shop talk a little short this time, just due to some of the technical difficulties, but also because I know we ran a little long with the PAX discussion. So from myself, Draconis, it has been fun. Thanks for sticking with us.
And your boy, Dr. Shevlin, telling you to, you know, take care of yourself and take your vitamins and drink your milk. I don't know I'm definitely not that kind of doctor, but hey, I play one in comics, right? All right, guys, have fun. See you next time.